I feel very honored that I can interview you. So thank you very much. For starters, first of all, I love your books. I've read everything that you've written up until this point. But for anybody watching that has never picked up any of your books before, how would you describe your Alfom universe?
All the stories are interconnected, but at first maybe it doesn't seem like they are, especially with the first couple, I would say. But as the series goes on, it will become more obvious. But essentially, they're all connected by these 9 artificial general intelligences, which are called the Alfom. And they play a part in all the stories to more or less extents. And they kind of, in some cases, interfere a lot with what's happening in these different settings. In other cases, they're there, but very minor presence. So that's the very vague answer for like how they're all a part of the same shared universe.
I started out actually reading Blessed is the Rot because I saw it on NetGalley and I was like, hey, the cover is beautiful, by the way. Whoever does your cover art, it's gorgeous. And it sucked me right in. How do you say the second book? I keep saying Neoin, but I don't know if that's right.
I know, I did like the worst thing an author can do is like choose a title people can't pronounce. So yeah, Nitho is the first one because some people say Nitho, and I was like, oh, I guess it does look a little bit like myth, but the way I say it is Nitho. And then the second book is Neuen because it's a German word.
Ah.
And they do for the EU, it's an oi sound in German. So it's one way to say new. Their grammar's complicated, and I got kind of scolded by somebody at the last convention I was at, a German, because she was like, it doesn't make sense for it to be Neuen by itself without another word for it to be change the ending. And I was like, I know, but I really wanted a palindrome.
Right.
So that it's the same, spelled the same forward and back. And I was like, and it was the only one in German that
I
made
never
sense.
caught that. I never thought.
Oh, yeah.
Wow. But also, I mean, in response to that, it's a sci-fi. Like it's another world. To be hung up on. Well, it needs a word at the end of it. This is also a fake world. Like it's a different. This is sci-fi.
Yes. You can change the grammar. It's okay.
It's okay. I did see, like I said, I read a few of your other interviews, one specifically that in it you said that you didn't originally plan for this to be interconnected. It kind of came after you started writing things. What was the first, I know that Nitho was the first like novel that you have actually like published, like your debut, but what was like the first, I guess, story idea that you ever really had that you wanted to put down on paper?
Oh, it was a novella. If we count a novella as my first long piece. And so that one is actually on Goodreads because I couldn't get them to remove it because not that it's like awful, but my writing style changed so much since I wrote it.
Is
Because
it
I wrote it when I was
Neo-humanoid?
like, yeah, neo-humanoids, yeah. The one with like the childish looking cover.
Yeah, you know what? That's okay. Like, at what point in your stories did you start to realize like, oh, actually, I could make these connected? Was it like after a few short stories, or like at what point did you say, this really has some potential to be a bigger universe?
So I will say neo-humanoids is completely unrelated to the Alfom series. And that is another reason why I wanted them to remove it to avoid confusing people. But they don't remove books once they've been published. So I unpublished it. Okay, so that's why nobody can find it. But for the Alfom series, the first one I wrote that would be sort of related to what the final product was it Noyan?
Oh, you wrote that first, or you had that story
Yeah,
idea
because
first?
so it used to be called Scions of the Leaf, I think.
Hmm.
And it was a completely different book, like different character names, different sort of premise. Like the world wasn't quite the same. There were like a couple of elements I kept and like a handful of names.
Hmm.
And that was basically, and there was botany. That was like the big thing that remained. But it was Noyan. And then Science of the Leaf was weird because it was like my old writing style, which was kind of Victorian,
Mm.
because I used to read a lot of Victorian literature. And then I was reading more modern sci-fi, and my writing style completely changed. And so that sat like for a very long time, like years. And then I wrote Delta T, which will come out probably like halfway through the series when I kind of rewrite it. And then I wrote Nitho. And then Nitho was when I kind of got the idea for the shared universe
Oh, okay.
with the Alfom.
Mm.
And I didn't, it took me a while to figure out how I could bring the other two back in. But when I did, I had to like completely write Noyan, and then Delta T will need to be rewritten a fair amount too.
Mm. To be able to
But
connect
yeah,
them.
it was basically with Nitho that I thought,
Mm.
oh, I can make it all connected.
Yeah, you and honestly, you've turned me into like Carmen Sandiego, I feel, because as I read each story, I'm like, wait, what is this? And I'm like, I think I've reread a couple of your things several times because after I read one, I go back and I read the story and I'm like, oh, like I feel like it's consuming me. Like trying to figure out all of these connections with everything. And then of course I just finished Blessed is the Link, which again I was like, wait. And going back and looking at other things. So it's been really fun. I want to ask about like your short stories. Do those typically kind of come after you have already written the novel and then or before? Like when do you usually write the short stories and how do you kind of decide like what is going to be for that kind of medium versus something that's going to be a lot longer into a novel?
Yeah, so it depends. Usually I will have written the novel first, and then I go back and write a companion short story piece. Not always, like Wireworks, there's a novel for that that'll come out after the Bit trilogy's done. And I wrote Wireworks, which is one of my Clark's World short stories, that was written first because I had the idea. And then I thought, oh, I really like this world and I can expand it. And I'll have a second short story related to that that will also come before the novel. So I'll write that before the novel. But usually I write the novel and then the short story.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of a way for me to,
Add more.
flesh out the world and characters. And I also feel like sometimes I kind of don't do right by certain characters. Like I feel bad for
Mm,
them.
mm, mm, mm.
And like either they don't get enough page time or awful things happen to them, without spoiling. I don't know if you read Paper Airplane Poet yet,
I
but
that's the one I haven't read yet. I need to read
yeah.
that. I'm going to read that soon. And I love that you do short stories. I feel like I wish more authors did that because there's so much more that you can flesh out in a short story that it's not like an extra commitment of like, okay, I have this whole other novel to read before I find out what happens. It's like, oh, it's this like little short story that I can get more information about, a character that I really liked or that, had a kind of tragic situation happen to them.
Yeah. I mean, I like it too because for the same reason, like I want to spend more time with the characters, especially the ones that I didn't get to spend a lot of time with. So Paper Airplane Poet really focuses on Tilly and Nicholas,
Mm-hmm,
and they both didn't get a lot of page time in Blessed is the Rot. So that was kind of me, thinking, okay, what characters
hmm.
do I want to focus on more?
Yeah.
And it's never the lead because, or either of the leads in the case of Blessed is the Rot, because they got enough page
Right.
time and they're going to get more page time with the next two books too. But it helps because I can, in the case of Nicholas, he becomes important, as you already kind of
Yeah. I
see
know.
with Blessed is the Link. And so I wrote Paper Airplane Poet without really knowing how important he was going to be. And now I'm really glad I fleshed him out
Mm.
more because the role will expand even more in Blessed is the Sink. So yeah, it's just, it's a nice way to spend time with the characters and develop them outside the novel format because, yeah, it is way less of a commitment. I think I wrote the first draft of Paper Airplane Poet in a day,
Yeah.
which, I mean, that's all I did that day. That was like super out of it because it was like, back then it was 7,000 words, which it went up for the final version, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's still less of a commitment, and it's satisfying because then it's done.
Which has been your favorite to write out of like your novels and out of your stories?
I think Nypho, because I wrote that in like 3 months and it was like a fever dream. It just like came. Like there was no effort involved. I mean, there was effort, but like it was, I didn't want to like stop writing basically.
Mhm.
And I wasn't self-published then. Like I was still trying to do traditional
Mhm.
publishing. And so I wasn't, distracted. I was just writing it and I wasn't kind of bogged down with all the things in the industry that can be annoying,
Mhm.
especially for self-publishing.
Mhm.
But yeah, that one I would say kind of just came very fast.
Mhm.
So there was no effort involved. On the flip side of that, the Bit trilogy has been a lot of fun to write, but it's been so hard
Mhm.
being consistent
Mhm.
because even with like the interconnectedness, okay, I need to like keep track of a couple of things,
Mhm.
but when it's like three stories one after the
Mhm.
other, and there's like weird technological quirks that I need to keep track of, like how they function.
Mhm.
Oh man.
I mean, to be honest, even if you did like, have some inconsistencies, it's so unique and so just like the world being built on like math and science. I wouldn't have known anything anyway. I would have just been like, "Oh, yeah. You know what? That is how it functions, you know? I would have believed you because I understand nothing of like anything with the kind of hard sciencey sort of thing. Like when I read Project Hail Mary, I just I just glossed over all the science stuff. I was like, yeah, centrifugal force. That's why he's spinning. Yeah. So it's okay, even if you're not that consistent. I don't think most of us would really, catch it and be like, oh, actually, that's not how distortions work. Actually, a question I'm really kind of dying to know. You you are going to write 16 books in this universe, right? 16. That makes me equally excited, but also nervous because of what has already happened, even in just 4 books. Do you already kind of know like the major connections and like what the future books are gonna entail? Or, I mean, have you thought like that far ahead already to say, I know what's gonna happen in all 16, I guess 12 now, right?
Yeah, 12 more. Sometimes I think about it and I'm like, but at the same time, I don't want it to end. So, yes, everything's planned out to
Oh.
more or less extent. Once I knew I wanted to do this shared universe, there were a couple of like rough ideas I had, but then later ones developed. And actually, at some point, I told myself, okay, you have to stop. And if I had a new idea for a novel, it was like, that needs to be a short story,
Yeah.
maybe a novelette, but like no more novel ideas because 16 is already a
Yeah.
ton and that's going to take me years and years and years to do. So I need to like, I want to finish the
Mhm.
overarching story. I have the ideas. In some cases, it's just like a couple of notes, pages of notes for
Mhm.
them. Like when I sit down to actually start, I flesh out the notes and the characters. But in terms of like plot and main characters and how it serves the greater shared universe, that's all planned at
Wow.
this point. Yeah.
That's amazing. Do you this is just a follow-up question, not one that I had planned, but do you keep a track of everything by like do you have notebooks upon notebooks or do you like to do a lot of things digital? Like how do you kind of structure yourself as, an author to be able to stay organized enough to execute? Because my problem is I will plan everything, but then it's all like chaos, and then I can't find things, and then I'm like, I'll just write it later, and now here I am at almost 40, finishing nothing. So how do you keep yourself organized with so many like ideas? Like, how do you do that?
So I'm autistic, and I think that helps because
Oh,
I have to
me
like,
too. But
okay,
I'm like the probably the other not
other
organized side.
extreme. Yeah. So like I mean, basically I do everything digitally. I think when I was in high school, I was doing things with pen and paper, but at some point I was like, this is like a mess.
Yeah.
And it's a lot easier to like move and edit digitally. So I actually do everything digitally now. And I basically have like Word documents for each novel, and it has like, the plot, the world building, the characters, and any of like the science or weird. I don't like to say magic because to me, I was surprised when people said that Blessed is the Rot is like fantasy. I was like, no, it's not. It's all sci-fi. But like it does seem, and there are fantastical elements for sure. So the magic systems. So I have
I
all
have
that
a question
planned.
specifically about that actually.
Okay. So we'll come back to that. But yeah, so I have everything in like a Word document, and then I have that for each novel. And then I have like I think it's a Excel spreadsheet more for how the novels, like the bigger purpose they're serving in the series.
Mhm.
And then I'd say the most important thing for me being obsessed with the consistency is an Excel spreadsheet for the timelines.
Mm.
Because when I was writing Delta T, I was going back and editing, and I was like, wait, how long has it been? Has it been 2 weeks? Has it been a week? Or like, what day of the week is it? And I was getting so annoyed with myself because I couldn't keep track of it. And then way back then, I decided, okay, I need an Excel spreadsheet with the major plot points, like what day it happens. And if there's like a lot that happens in a day, even the timestamps, which I did for Blessed as a Sync. So I do it as I go now. Whereas with Delta T, I had to go back and do it. And that took hours to
Yeah.
figure out. But that's probably one of my most useful tools is
Mm.
that spreadsheet.
Yeah, I imagine you probably have that like backed up on three different places so you never
Yeah.
lose it.
Wait, if I
Uh,
lose that, uh,
you're toast.
yeah.
Talking about how blessed is the rot. I'm not a math girl at all. Not a math girl. And while I was reading Blessed is the Rot, I had to stop and Google. I was like, what is Euclidean math? What? I don't even know if I'm saying it right, honestly.
No, you're fine.
What is Euclidean math? What is non-Euclidean? I had no idea. I did not understand a single thing. What? And I was like, wow, I graduated high school so long ago. I don't even remember what this is. I'm Googling this. What made you inspired to build your world around math concepts?
I got the idea for Blessed is the Rot when I was doing like a radiation training course
Hmm.
for lab safety. And like it was like a 3 day course in a whole different city. So it was this whole thing I had to do. And I've always been obsessed with radiation, like ionizing radiation, like x-rays and stuff. I don't know why. It's like a weird fascination with this terrifying thing. And so that's kind of where the distortions came from.
Hmm.
And I was also rereading about Bloodborne, which is one of my favorite video games.
Hmm.
I don't know why I started rereading the lore for it, but the lore is like crazy in that video game. And then those two kind of came together and gave me the idea for Blessed is the Rot. And in terms of the math, I guess the big inspiration for that was Canticle for Leibowitz, which is a novel from the 60s, I think. And in that, it's like post-apocalyptic, and there's like an order of monks that basically preserve knowledge
Mm.
because everybody's like turned against knowledge and learning
Okay.
because it basically caused the collapse. And so they're kind of trying to keep the torch lit. And so they kind of worship like scientists.
Mm.
So Leibowitz was like a scientist, and so he's like a saint. And I was like, that is so cool.
Yeah.
So I kind of took that and as inspiration for the Church of
Hmm.
Impermanence. And I also have another novel where math is kind of magic that'll come out later. And that also kind of, I was like, oh, I should take that and go further because
Yeah.
that was not as like church and
Hmm.
ecclesiastical as Blessed is the Rot. So I don't know exactly where it came from, but like I'm a scientist.
Hmm.
So to me, like I think the idea of like science as a religion or math as a religion is kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I've seen other authors do it
Hmm.
to more or less extent. And I guess all those inspirations came together
Yeah.
and formed the basis for it.
Hmm.
But for your question about Euclidean and non-Euclidean, other people have pointed that out, like being confused by it. And I will say, I'm not the first person to do that. This is not
Oh.
I'm not that
It was
creative.
a first for me.
If you've ever read Lovecraftian horror, it's in there a lot.
I haven't.
So, yeah, if you haven't, like, you wouldn't know.
Yeah.
But there's like a couple of Lovecraft stories and probably some of the other people that wrote in his mythos that basically use Euclidean geometries as like horrifying, not sorry, non-Euclidean geometries
Right.
as horrifying, and
Oh,
they
that's so
just
cool.
drive the mind insane.
Right. I mean, it's not,
So,
I'll try to be spoiler free, but in Blessed is the Link, having the kind of uneasiness being in a more non-Euclidean space, I was like, wow, that's so good. Like imagining like you're so used to everything being like, kind of angular and then being in this place where everything's just kind of not. That idea is just so cool. I can understand how that could be kind of like used in a horrific way.
yeah.
So that's really cool. I really like that a lot. What would you say? Because yes, I think Blessed is the Rot is to me it's fantasy. It's very fantasy compared to like Nitho and Noyan. Those are very sci-fi, like sci-fi feeling, cyberpunk sci-fi kind of vibes, but Blessed is the Rot's super fantasy, right? Like in my head, I'm imagining this like old-timey kind of, with taverns and stuff, and that's just the picture in my head.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, oh, this is very fantasy feeling. And I think we kind of equate fantasy with magic. And so when they're doing these like rituals to kind of, deal with the distortions, to me, I'm like, oh, that's magic. That's magic to me. I guess there's a couple of questions that I have about that, but one of them is, what would you say, I guess, to people who are interested in Blessed is the Rot, in that trilogy, because they like fantasy and it is a very much more fantasy feel, who might be a little scared of like math and science elements? How would you get them to read your other works? Because of course, having the full experience is chef's kiss. What would you say to get them to kind of not be intimidated by the math and the science?
If they read Blessed is the Rot and they liked it, then the other two are going to be more of a breeze because there's way more math in Blessed is the Rot. In terms of science, Nytho, there's not really that much. Like, I don't do much hard sci-fi at all. It's more just the
Yeah.
cyberpunk aesthetic.
Right.
There's a little bit about like computer science, but I'm not a computer scientist,
Right,
so
right,
I'm not
right.
gonna like dive into something that I don't know that much about anyway. Nguyen is, I guess, the hardest sci-fi that I have published,
Mm-hmm.
but I make a point to try to make it digestible
Mm-mm-mm.
because I mean, I don't want to hold everybody's hand
Right.
because I trust that my readers are intelligent.
Right.
And I get annoyed when a writer holds my hand too much.
Mm.
But I give enough information that the concepts are explained as much as you'll need.
It's more because like not necessarily what it is, but what people perceive it to be. Like people kind of a lot of fantasy readers, a lot of them are like me where we cross over, we read kind of the full gamut of speculative fiction, but a lot of fantasy readers just like to stay in the fantasy. And so maybe
Yeah.
kind of a book like Nitho where it's like AI, like a love story with AI, it's like they have that image in their head of, oh, this is going to be very kind of science based, like this is science fiction. When they just kind of say this is sci-fi and this is fantasy, what would you say?
It's a story about people. Well,
Mm.
okay, some AI, but they're still people. And their interactions, and that's like universal across
Mm.
stories.
Mhm.
So if you if you're drawn to characters, you know, that's especially for Nitha, like that is the focus.
Yeah.
So yes, it's in a sci-fi setting and there's some futuristic elements, but it's really about the people and
Mhm.
their interactions and
Mhm.
like what it means to be sentient, to be conscious
Mhm.
and to be human or sort
Yeah.
of human. So
Right.
give it a try.
Yeah, I mean, I think Project Hail Mary is kind of a really great example of a book that's bringing people in that didn't think that they would like something sci-fi. Because I don't know if you've read
Mhm.
Project Hail Mary or seen it, but it's very much about the characters. Like it's the people, like the science stuff. Yeah, it's extra, but the relationship between the characters, that's the focal point. And then it's gotten a lot of people to say, "Wow, actually." I could do a sci-fi novel. I didn't think it could be like this. I think a lot of people are scared of things that are kind of more science, like they have this image in their head of science and math, right? And so I think hopefully, people start to give a lot of sci-fi a chance because not all of it is, scary or intimidating. A lot of it is, like you said, they're people. It's if you are a person, you can relate to these people, regardless of what
Yeah,
setting that they're in, right?
it's definitely a problem with the genre, and I forget about this sometimes because I'm
A
deep in
scientist.
it. Yeah. And I mean, I read mostly sci-fi,
Hmm.
occasionally fantasy, but usually sci-fi. But yeah, it's true that, and I've had this conversation with other people that people that don't read sci-fi equate sci-fi with hard sci-fi, and like Asimov or Clark, and it's like there's so much more to the genre, and
Right.
it's unfortunate that I mean I like those authors, but I understand not everybody does. But it's like yeah, there's so much more to sci-fi, and I know fantasy has a huge following now. It's
Right.
like okay, if we can get that for sci-fi,
Yeah, but I really think that Alfom Universe is such a it's such a I don't even have words to say. It's so freaking cool because you're writing all of these books and stories that are kind of stretching a really wide kind of gamut of speculative fiction in general. I mean, it's I would say like each book and each story, it it feels very distinct. Like I know that they're all written by you, but they also feel very different from each other, which I think is cool because I love reading diversely. As you can probably see behind me, I have so many different kinds of books, and I have even more in my library. I think reading diversely is really important, and you are giving readers kind of lots of different, kind of subgenres, and there's even romance in there, and I just think that's really cool. There's no really question with that. I just want to say that's really, really
thank
cool that you're doing
you.
that, and I hope that that gets, people to kind of read books that maybe they wouldn't have, because if they want to get the full experience of the Alfom universe, they've got to go and read everything that you publish. Non-book kind of question. What's your normal day look like, because you are an indie author, so of course you also have, a day job, and I'm sure you have hobbies. Like what is your, I guess, typical day or week really look like for Sheri, not necessarily just like an author?
Yeah, so I have a day job at a university and I go in, not 9 to 5, more like 10 to 6 or 11 to
Yeah.
7. Because I'm in academia, we could do that.
Right.
And I run a lab with a microscope, an electron microscope, and I have to teach a little bit, and I help other people with their research, and then I do my own research. So that takes up my day. And then I usually use my nights to work on writing.
Mm.
Weekends as well, but especially my husband is like, you have to go out and do stuff. You have to
Like, I
hang
don't
out with
want
our
to.
friends. Like, I know, I just want to write. Yeah, it's a balance. But so I live in Germany, and in the winter, the weather's really bad
Mm.
coming from the US. The weather's really bad in the winter. And so I really just I'm a hermit in the
Yeah.
winter. Most people are. So that's easy for the writing
I'm just a
stuff.
hermit year round.
Yeah, right. I would be, but I get forced into doing stuff with people.
Right.
But yeah, in the summer, especially now, like the weather's really nice, so people want to do stuff. So okay, I have to, it's a little harder to balance. But yeah, there's a lot of outdoor stuff happening now. So we're a little bit outside of Frankfurt, Germany, which is a bigger city. So we'll go into Frankfurt and just hang out with people. Video games. But I actually haven't played anything in months because I've been focusing on writing.
I wish I could say, no, slow down, it's okay, take a break, but I want to read more. So
I can't. I've
I'm
tried
okay
and
with
I'm like, I
that.
can't.
There's a cathedral in Germany that, knowing you live in Germany, I don't know if you've ever seen it or if there's like any connection whatsoever, but do you know which one I'm talking about? It's like a really big giant one that's like, I forgot what's it, like the Cologne or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I when I in my head, because you live in Germany and you wrote Blessed is the Rot, I just think of that cathedral all the time.
Right?
And I'm like, this is obviously in the book. Like this is something that's it's very Euclidean. Um,
Yeah.
are there places that like you have lived in or that you've traveled to that have like inspired kind of when you're creating the world in your head, this is like the image that you go to when you're writing a certain scene?
Blessed is the Rock for sure cathedrals. There's one in Frankfurt, the Kaiserdom, and that one, every time we walk past it, I'm like, ah, it's so bloodborne, which is Blessed is the Rock.
Yeah.
Like that aesthetic is just perfect. Trying to think with Night though, some of the inspiration was, I call them, or I guess they are called non-spaces or non-places.
Mm,
They're like usually newer constructions that you feel could be anywhere.
mm,
Like, you know, those glass and steel buildings that just look all the same.
yeah. Hmm.
And I mean, I hate that. Like, I know most people are like, oh, they're so modern and nice. And I'm like, yeah, but it could be anywhere. It just
Right.
feels so boring.
Yeah.
And I got that feeling when I went to Seoul. That's kind of where I got that,
I
like,
just got
visceral
back from Seoul.
reaction. Oh, yeah, that's right. I think I saw
I just got
that.
back like a few days ago, yeah. Yeah,
I
Seoul is
mean,
very modern. There's a lot of those buildings.
yeah. Like there are parts like I loved Itaewon, which is all
Mhm.
like older
Yeah.
and like really hilly and interesting. And even Pyeongtaek, we went there and I was like, this is awesome. This is more like cyberpunk, like
Yeah.
the old cyberpunk aesthetic,
Hmm.
which I guess you're supposed to not like, but I do like. But for me, like a place that I would not like that would feel hostile is more like the new constructions, like in Seoul. So parts of Seoul anyway. So Armonk in Nitho was meant to be that. Like
Mm,
it just feels soulless.
yeah.
Just doesn't
Pun
have an
intended.
identity.
Seoul.
Yeah, right. I just didn't think of that. So
Actually, it's so funny that you say that because I went when I was in Seoul, I went to this One Piece exhibit because I love One Piece. I went to this One Piece exhibit and when I went outside, I was such a tourist because I was like taking pictures of the sky and my friend was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, it looks fake. Like it looks fake. It's so weird because it was like bright blue sky with like clouds and then there was these giant just like buildings that were just like I don't know how to explain it, but you probably know what I mean. It just looked like I was in a simulation, like I was in a game simulation world because I'm like, this is so strange. It was like this almost uncanny valley feeling of like blue sky, trees everywhere, and then these just like random long, like tall skyscraper buildings that were just kind of like there. I don't know if it almost felt ominous in a way because I was like, I don't know. This is just
yeah,
do you know what
right.
I'm trying to say? It just
Yeah,
it felt so strange.
definitely.
I literally have like pictures of it on my camera roll because I just couldn't like it made me feel so uneasy, you know?
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm not okay. My husband didn't like that feeling either, but like, okay, that's two other people now
Right?
that because my brother loved the new construct. Like when we went to the older areas, he was like, "Yeah, I don't like these areas so much." I was like, "I love these areas.
Yeah, no.
They're
My
real."
my friend from Korea today, she literally came to Tokyo this weekend and we took her to I live near a city called Kawagoe in Japan. And so there's a
Oh,
street that's like an area called Koedo, which is like Little Edo. And a lot of the buildings are like still the same kind of they're re what's the word? Restored, but they look very much like Edo period buildings and
wow.
it's so cool to just like walk through and see all of these like older buildings.
I like the skyscraper, a lot of skyscrapers in New York, but a lot of them are older too.
Mm,
Like from like the 20s or, you
right.
know, they're more brick. It's just the ones that, because New York feels very different than a
Yeah.
lot of other cities.
Yeah.
And I like it.
Yeah.
But when you go to a city and you're like, I could be anywhere, like, I
Yeah.
don't, what's the point?
We've been on this question for a long
Yeah,
time. Two autistic people will talk about buildings for 10 minutes.
you're right.
So it's about your characters. So I guess one question is, Um, are character names like are they easy for you or are they hard for you? Like what is the process of like finding names for your characters? Like how did you come up with Nitho? Like I feel like character names
Good
are really
question.
hard for authors, but I really want to know how you came up
So
with those names.
I usually kind of cheat because they all kind of connect to something.
Mm, okay.
Not always. Sometimes it's just like, I like the sound of that name, so
Mm,
I choose it. But like all of the Alphom's names are based on, oh, I forget if they're, what are they called? Not, are they old ones or it's in the Lovecraft mythos, like
okay.
that kind of shared universe. There's like these gods and they're kind of outside of space and time.
Hmm.
And so I basically took ones that kind of made sense to
Hmm.
have a connection with each of the Alfom, and I just kind of broke the name apart and put it back together.
Oh,
So
okay.
Nitho is from Nyarlathotep, and he has a lot in common with that. And then there's a couple of others that came from these other
Mm,
old ones. Keza came from a character in one of those stories, Dreams in the Witch House. I always say it wrong. Dreams in the Witch House or Dreams in the Witch House. And that one has a lot of non-Euclidean
oh, okay.
math-based stuff. And so there's a woman who's a bit like a witch, and her name is Keziah, so that Keza came from
Oh,
that.
okay.
And so basically, all the characters in that, maybe except Sonia and Mags, I think all the other main characters' names came from characters in that story
Hmm.
in some way.
That's cool. I
So,
would have
like I
never
said,
thought to do that
I
before.
cheat.
Honestly, that's a good cheat. I might steal that from you. I'm gonna like, oh, I like this. Let's take a few letters and jumble them up. No, that's smart.
Yeah,
That's efficient.
make it, yeah, close enough, but yeah. So, but that was what I did for Nitho with Noyan. I don't, some of that came from the previous version that it was.
Mm,
But then I also wanted to make the name sound a bit more Germanic.
hmm.
So I took, but futuristic. So I like
Mm,
took German names and kind of changed them a little bit. But I wanted them to also be simple for an English speaker to pronounce.
right.
So I didn't want to choose weird things like the letters with the little dots over the
Uh,
umlaut. I didn't want to choose those because those freak people out.
yeah,
They used to
because
freak me
Noyan
out.
is so easy to pronounce too, you
I
know.
know, right? That was smart. But okay, Levy, everybody knows how to pronounce that.
Oh,
Lynn.
Levi, that's how you pronounce it?
Or
I
you could
said
say Levi, I
I
guess,
said
but
Levi because I was thinking of like Attack on Titan, like Levi
yeah,
accent.
I know. Yeah, I was thinking that, yeah, people might do
But
that.
Levi,
It's
that's how you
fine.
pronounce it. Levi.
Levy, yeah, because in German I could be Leffy, Levi. I don't know. Anyway,
Like Levi or Levi, everyone knows how to pronounce that. I'm like,
nope, it's fine.
uh,
At least the important point is in your head you see it and you can think of something. Because when I read like Russian literature, for
yeah.
example, I'm like, oh, how do I say this character's name again? R.
That's why I love audiobooks because I just listen to however they say it and I'm like,
Yeah, that's smart.
you probably know more than me, so I'm gonna listen to you.
Yeah, right.
I did read that you are an outliner. You've said that you're an outliner, you plan things. But for me, when I'm writing, sometimes like my characters will just do something that I didn't plan for. Has that ever happened to you where like you had a direction, a trajectory, and then your characters just did something completely different and it kind of made you stop and have to rework some things?
Yes, very much. Without spoiling anything, there's a scene at the end of Blesses the Link that's pretty awful, and that was not planned. That just
Mm.
happened as I was writing. I was like, oh no, this has to happen.
Your characters just need it to happen. It's going.
Yeah. And it was actually because I had a general idea for where the story went after that,
Mhm.
but I didn't really have some of the character arcs for the third book planned. And so the thing that happened to that character defines that character's arc in the last book,
Okay.
obviously. So that was not planned. And then that completely changed kind of part of the trajectory.
Hmm.
And then I'm finishing my edits to the first draft of Blessed is the Saint because I put it aside for it was supposed to be a month and it ended up being longer, which is actually better. And I was like, I really, the ending's not right. And
Mm.
you know, for the third in a trilogy, it's got to be right. And I had it planned one way, and then as I was writing, it changed. And then I let it sit and I thought about it and I was like, nope, it needs to go back to how I originally planned it. So
Yeah.
I'm basically having to rework the whole
Hmm.
ending. And as I've been doing that, I've gotten more ideas, and now it's like over 100,000 words, and I'm like, oh man.
Fine, it's fine. 100,000, that's nothing. That's child's play. I've read Alchemized, okay? I'm
Oh, that's
that book, that's a weapon.
yeah.
Like if you hit someone with that book, you're going to jail. So
Yeah.
we're fine if you write over 100,000 words. Don't worry. We'll read it. We'll read it. If, let's say, let's manifest. If your works were to be adapted into a visual format, which one would you much like rather, that's not, which one would you rather them be? Like a TV show or a movie franchise or even
Oh,
like an animated series? Like what do you see if your works were to be adapted?
wow. I thought you were gonna ask me which one. I was like, oh, I know.
No, all of let's
Huh.
say all of them. But you can also say which
Hmm.
one you would want to be adapted first. Let's manifest that.
Yeah. Okay, that's easier. I think Bless is the Rot
Mm,
because I think that aesthetic would be awesome to see.
mm,
Like, because you know, Nythos would be great. I don't know how well it would translate to TV or movie because so
mm,
much of it is in the narration and the unreliable narrators,
yeah.
and that's really hard to capture in like film in general.
Mhm.
So I don't know how well. I mean, the story itself would translate, sure, but like the that essence of it would be lost. But then in terms of TV versus movie,
Or animated series. Like I
oh,
love manga, I
animated.
love anime,
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah. Me
that
too.
whole aesthetic of it, comic books, like
I
what
think Nytho would be good animated. Maybe
mm,
that would be easier for the to capture more because I think you can get away with more stylistic things
right.
in animated format.
Especially the end. I feel like
Yeah.
what about Noyan?
I think Noyan's short enough that film would work. I think if you tried to do TV, it might drag on too long.
Mm,
I mean, there are a lot of things you could probably cut down to make it short enough for movie format.
yeah, but no, we don't want to cut down anything.
I know, I know.
I just imagine all of your works like I could see like movie scenes of them and also like oh this would be so cool as like a manga like I'm reading them like wow
Yeah.
that would be such a cool like fight scene in like an anime.
I know, like if any illustrator wants to work with me,
Right. Which of your characters would you most want to hang out with in real life if they were real?
I love all my characters so much.
If you had to take
Huh.
one of them to dinner, who would you want to take to dinner and just hang out with and chat with?
Naitho is my favorite.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know how interesting it would be,
Mm.
especially depending on what point in his journey.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of like philosophy
Mm.
related things with him. And so I think that would be very interesting. But I mean, it's hard because every book I have like favorites. Like I love Fenrir so
Yeah,
much.
he's a good character.
I don't know how interesting he'd be to talk to. Like, but
I mean, I'm not going to spoil, but he did make me a little angry in Blessed is the Link. I'm not going to lie to you. I
oh,
I was a little
like I
mad.
want to know.
I was a little mad at him in Blessed is the Link. I mean, I understood, right? I understood, but I was
Like
like,
what, but I want to know without like maybe you can just edit it out. Like what
I'll
were you
edit it
mad
out.
about?
What are you excited for the most in your upcoming works that you like just really want the readers to read like now? Like obviously you have, 12 more novels planned. Is there one that you're just like really dying for like people to just like you want it out already, but it's maybe gonna be in the future a little ways ahead? And can you give like a little morsel of a hint of what's to come? Perhaps.
I'm very excited for the final book. Um,
The final as in of the
the
trilogy or like the
last.
last
Yeah.
oh the
No,
very last.
like the very last book because it's all working towards that. I know exactly where it needs to
Okay.
go, but like it's gonna be so long. But in terms of like more things that'll happen more sooner, sooner. Um, the follow-up to Nitho, I'm excited for that. They'll be the first in another trilogy that I'm excited for because that's basically reworking Delta T.
Okay.
And I would say the character in that is the most close to home, which is a little terrifying, but
Mm.
I am really excited to rewrite that because I have a lot in mind for that. There's a lot with like time travel involved in that one. Um,
Time travel, you said my favorite
yeah,
word.
yeah, Delta T. That's not a spoiler. Like
Time
it's
travel.
going to be fairly obvious pretty early on. But I would say the one that I'm the most excited to write that's almost a standalone is the second to last book. And that will be a little bit like Blessed is the Rot, like a dark science fantasy vibe.
Okay.
And there'll be like sound monsters, sort of, because I
Ooh.
love resonance.
Oh my
I don't know if you know the video game Control, but I love
no.
that game. And it's all about like monsters that like use resonance or whatever. And I was like,
Mm.
so it's like sort of like a combination of that and then Death Stranding is another video game. I haven't played it. I've watched my husband play it because I'm like, that's a commitment to play this game. It seems really long, but just like really weird monsters. But there'll be two characters in that are from previous novels, and I'm excited for
Ooh.
them to be together in a novel, and they're like the focus. I'm so excited for that.
I almost hate that I asked you this question because now I can't wait. And now I'm like, keep writing.
I know. I know. I'm like, does it have to be the second to last? Like, yes, it has to be second to last because that there are things that need to happen before that.
Right.
I've had that in mind for like a couple of years now, and I'm just like, it's gonna be so long.
Wow. Are you gonna Brandon Sanderson it where you just like crank out the novels like or do you have like is it gonna be like 10 years before it's done? Like do you have like a timeline of when you think that you'll have all 16 published?
So right now I'm publishing every 6 months because I had a bit of a backlog that let me do that.
Okay.
At some point I'll catch up. So like I'm writing Blessed is the Snake right now. And so I had hoped to release it like January, February, but it depends on when I get stuff back from beta readers
Okay.
but at some point I think it'll probably slow down to more like one every 8 months or a year because I don't want the quality to decrease. I don't
Right.
want to rush
Okay.
because I actually get a lot of ideas when it just sits for a little bit. So I had hoped two a year, but at some point that's not going to be
Yeah.
possible.
So
So,
I'm like counting out my birthdays. I'm like, okay, so maybe by the time I'm 48.
right? That's what I've done.
Oh, but I mean,
I
I think
mean,
it's cool that you have like so much that you can write because I think a lot of like I probably feel like I'm like you. I have way more ideas and not enough time to sit there and write them out, like crank them out. But I think a lot of authors they are like, what's my idea? Like, what am I going to write next? But so you have the opposite problem where you have all of these things that you want to write.
it's annoying.
Yeah,
It's
no,
a
but
good
that's also
problem to
good,
have.
right?
Yeah.
Where do you usually write? Do you write like at home or do you like to go to different places? Like,
Usually, yeah, at home in we have like a guest room that my desk is in, and then but if I'm traveling, I'll also write, and I get a lot done, especially on the train. I can't do anything on the bus because I get motion sickness,
me
but
too.
on the tr I hate the bus.
I
On
do.
the train, when I went to the UK for a book convention, I wrote the companion piece for Blessed is the Link pretty
Mhm.
much during that trip.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think because there's nothing else to do, I can just,
Yeah.
as long as I have earbuds.
Do you want to stay indie or is like, do you still hope to eventually publish traditionally?
I mean, if you had asked me before I got super into indie publishing, I would have been like, oh, traditional publishing.
Mhm.
But I've learned a lot since then. It would have to be pretty worth my while, I would say. It makes me nervous, a lot of publishers like thinking, oh, maybe we use AI. And I'm like, no, you're not. feeding my work
Yeah.
into anything. And
Yeah.
so the idea of having to let go of your work and maybe they change the conditions of your contract and oh my God, that would be the worst. I'd be open to like if somebody wanted to do an adaptation, like that's fine.
Yeah.
Or if somebody wanted to help with an audiobook, because I won't do that because that's just way too much
Yeah.
work.
I love audiobooks. That's like my go-to, like for
Mm,
reading. I love a good audiobook. I would love to hear
yeah.
like how Nitho sounds. I think that would be
Yeah.
so cool.
See, I don't really listen to audiobooks. That's the other thing,
Oh,
the genre basically.
I love
But
them.
I know a ton of people solely read audiobook. A lot of people need to do audiobook for accessibility reasons, and I want to be able to
Yeah.
provide that, but it's just so, I mean, I know there's ways to make it not as expensive. It's more like the work involved.
Yeah. It's
Like
really
having
expensive.
to edit it and listen. I'm like, that would be so much time. And I don't like I would need to listen to other audiobooks to see how it's done well, you know what I mean?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
I can go to a shelf and pull a book and like see how people format or what
Yeah.
they do for
Right, right.
that. But so yeah, it would be nice to if I would be totally open for the audiobook
Yeah.
with TradPub,
Well,
but
if you don't listen to audiobooks and you haven't read Project Hail Mary, that is an
I
excellent.
haven't. So
That is probably, if anybody asks me, like, what's the best audiobook, like for someone who doesn't listen to audiobook, Project Hail Mary, 100%. And actually,
wow.
I think because you are interested in like sound and all of that, that is another reason why the audiobook I think is good without spoiling anything, is because there's elements of that. And that's all.
Hmm.
That's all I'll
And
say.
that'd be good, yeah. I ride my bike so I can listen to it then. I usually listen to German to practice, but
Yeah. No, Project Hail Mary is a fantastic audiobook. I love that book. What advice would you give to indie authors specifically that are kind of nervous to get into the world? I know on your website you have like kind of how to self-publish, like the what you went through. I've read all of that. What would you say to authors now that I think it is much easier to be an indie author in today's world? What advice would you give to people, especially if they, I don't know, feel like indie author, like publishing indie is not as good, right, as trad publishing?
I used to think the same way. And then I read more about what's involved in TradPub and was very frustrated with just not even getting full requests for manuscripts.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's not about the quality.
Yeah.
It's about what's marketable. And once I realized that, I felt a lot better.
Hmm.
And then that really motivated me to self-publish because I was like, I don't know what's marketable and I don't care because I just want to write what I want to write. I have the stories that I want to tell and I want to get it out there. And if people read it, then that's great. If they don't, then that's sad, but oh well. So I think as an indie author, it's important to try to like focus and just not get distracted by the marketing because that can be a huge time sink
Mm,
because you have to do it all.
yeah.
And sometimes, like when I first was starting, like when Nitho came out and I was starting to try to promote it a bit more,
Hmm.
it's like a weird trap. Like you get sucked in
Yeah.
and you get fixated on it. And it's like, just step back and remember, usually the reason you got into it was for the writing.
Right.
So I always try to write more than I market. And I think usually the advice is the opposite. And it's like, I don't, that's a recipe for burnout for me.
Yeah.
So I think it's
No,
like it
that's
always has to come back to the craft,
hmm
you know?
Maurice Offers, he has talked about this as well. Like you can market as much as you want, but what's going to sell is a good book. It has to be a
Yeah.
good book. If you don't have a good book, you have nothing. You can market something, but you have to have a good book. So learning the craft and sitting there and writing, that's the most important. Once you get people liking it, word of mouth is, I think, super
Yes.
helpful and important. And so, yeah, no, I think that's important. Like not getting hung up on marketing because yeah, that's good advice for myself as well, because I also want to eventually indie publish.
Yay.
Yay! Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, they their goal is trad publishing, and that's great. If you want to, be a trad publish, if you have a dream publisher, that's wonderful. But I think indie authors, there's a lot of work involved that people kind of dismiss, I think.
Yeah.
That, oh, indie authors is, not as good. You still have editing, you still have, all of these other things that you put your time into. It's not just, oh, I typed this up last night and I'm sending it out into the
Right.
world. I think you're working just as hard. And so that's one of the reasons why I really want to do the series is I really want to talk to indie authors. I want to kind of hear from them and let I don't have a million followers, but like let my followers also kind of get exposed to different authors that maybe they wouldn't have come across before. So yeah, I'm really thankful that you're here and talking about it because I love your books. I want people to read your
Thank
books
you.
and I want you to be able to keep writing them. So yeah, I just want to say thank you so much. And if you want to let people know where they can best reach you, what's the best avenue if people want to find your books or get in contact with you or just find out what the right reading order is, not right, but recommended reading order. How would people
Recommend. Yeah.
go, how would people go about getting in touch with you?
My website is probably the best place because I control that. There's no weird algorithm or, bans or anything. So my website, I have a contact form. My author email address is, I think, in my press kit or it's somewhere buried in there. But the contact form's fine. I check it all the time. But I do have a couple of social media profiles. So I have Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky,
Mm.
and I post on all those pretty regularly. People can follow me on Goodreads because, my new stuff will appear there. And then in terms of purchasing, I did just start selling books directly from my website.
Mm.
So if that's probably the best way to support me because then I get the most return
Mm.
on any of the books, ebooks or print
Mhm.
copies. Otherwise, I have universal book links so people can choose whatever
Okay.
retailer they want because I know depending where you are,
Hmm.
there's different retailers. You can also just type in my name or the title and it could be in other retailers. It's not like my universal book link
Mm.
only has the ones
Yeah.
that sell my stuff. So, yeah, I distribute through Ingram Spark and so they are global.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, I am thankful that I was able to read Blessed is the Link because it's publishing at the end of next month, right? When is the publishing date for Blessed is
Yes.
the Link? June
June
30th.
30th.
Yeah, that's exciting. I can't wait to read Blessed is the Sea. I need to know what happens after. Anyways, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And yeah, go write, please.
Yes, I will. All right, today. That's the
Thank you.
plan.
All right, enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too. Bye.